Good evening all, and welcome. For those of you who haven't seen my posts on social media, I have just relaunched my Discord server. If you want to understand why I say relaunched, I'll explain all of the drama that happened in case you missed it at the end of the video. You'll find the link in the description, and probably the top comment. It should never expire, so just follow the link and you'll be redirected to the server. But anyway, without further ado, it's time to get comfortable. Look behind you and let the darkness take control. This took place about 8 or 9 years ago. So one day I'm chilling on Facebook, and I get a friend request from a guy called Andy. At first, I don't really think anything of it. I never add people I don't know anyway, so I ignore it for a few days. Then, I get a notification saying that I still had the pending friend request. So I look at the guy's profile and see that he has the same last name as my friend Rick's sister-in-law. I asked my friend Rick if he was family, and he said that it was his sister-in-law's cousin. I thought it was a little weird that he wanted to add me as a friend, but whatever, no biggie. I didn't want to offend my friend, so I added him. Huge mistake. Now, I am a huge Harry Potter fan. I remember posting on my Facebook page that I was going to the midnight release of the new movie and being super excited to go with all of my friends. Well, fast forwarded to the night of the movie, and I'm there with my best friends, and I see this guy staring at me. I think, weird. But I was really excited about the movie that I didn't even give him a second thought. Once we got into the theatre, we sit down, and I see this guy sit right in front of us. So we watch the movie, and this guy keeps turning around to look at me. I start to get really annoyed because he was distracting me from the movie, and I whisper, "What?" as meanly as I could, with a very WTF face. He turns around and leaves me alone for the rest of the movie. When the movie is over, my best friend and I are walking out of the theatre, talking about how amazing the movie was, when I see the same guy standing by my car. When I walk up to my car, it hit me that I'd seen the guy before. He's the guy I added on Facebook. So my automatic thought is, oh, maybe he just wants to meet me, because I'm Rick's friend. I slow my footsteps down a few feet from my car before we reach him. He didn't say anything at first, so my friend and I look at each other like, what does this guy want? So I say, "Hi, do I know you?" And he goes, "Not yet. I'm Andy." Then he steps forward and hands me an envelope. Okay, this is getting weird. Then he seemed really excited and said, "Open your present." I say, no thanks, and attempt to hand him back the envelope. But this guy just walks away, leaving me with my hand sticking out of the air towards him. My friend starts awkwardly laughing and grabs the envelope out of my hand saying, "Ooh, someone has a crush on you." I'm just kind of standing there a little spooked. Like, I don't know who the hell this guy is. So my best friend opens the envelope, and it's a 5-page letter about how he feels about me, and about how beautiful I am. That he loves reading my stuff on social media, and a $50 gift card to Starbucks. My friend stops laughing when she looks over and sees that I do not find it funny at all. I text Rick, asking him if this is some kind of joke he's playing on me. He assured me that he had no clue what I was talking about. Then Rick tells me he barely even talked to Andy, because he was a weird dude. Oh, now let me tell you. So I go home and delete him from Facebook. I rip up the 5-page note and give the gift card to my friend. In my mind, since I couldn't give the gift back, I wouldn't use it, so I wouldn't feel like I owed him anything. Things started escalating pretty quickly once I graduated high school and was getting ready to move. See, I lived in a small town, and I was getting ready to move to California to live with my dad. Once I moved, I started to get texts and phone calls from an unknown number. I finally answered one day, and the person on the other end says, "Oh hey, it's Andy. I miss you so much," and my heart feels frozen. It was so scary, because I had no idea how he got my number. I politely ask him to leave me alone and hang up before he can say anything else. I quickly go to change my phone number, thinking, oh, this will stop him. But things actually got worse. I started to get packages in the mail. Things like a Harry Potter beanie, a Doctor Who jacket, and flowers. I got flowers from him almost every week delivered to my door. I got a letter that asked if I would go to Italy with him, that he would pay for everything with no strings attached. Then the cherry on top was that he went to New York and saw Daniel Radcliffe's play and got his autograph and picture with him, and he sent them to me. I threw the picture out, but kept the autograph. Then the phone calls started again. Like, how the hell did this guy obtain my number? I finally picked up the phone and told him to stop sending me stuff. I told him I was throwing everything away. I didn't want or need anything from him. I told him he made me feel extremely uncomfortable. He didn't like that very much, and he basically said, "You're in a bad mood today," and quickly hung up. The next time he called, I told him I would contact the police if he kept calling. Things settled a little bit. A few months went by, but then I got together with my now husband, who lived in that little town. Of course, I moved back. I remember the first time I saw Randy when I got back. It was at a shopping centre. He looked over at me for a second and then quickly started walking towards me. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up, and I turned around and quickly left the store without looking behind me. While all of this is happening, I reconnect with my sister, who, due to some family drama, I hadn't spoken to in about 3 years. Turns out she was the one who told Andy about my phone number, as I always kept her updated on my address or phone numbers in case of an emergency, and she was the one who gave him my address. I was almost mad enough at her to stop talking to her again. But she told me that he would message her on Facebook, and that he was my boyfriend, and he lost my number, or he wanted to send me a surprise. He also asked her if she would be okay with him asking to marry me. With us not talking, she had no idea that this wasn't true. Apparently, he can be a pretty charming liar. Anyway, she promises to not give him any more information about me, and blocks him on Facebook as well. So at this point in my life, I'm with my now husband, then boyfriend, and we have plans to get married soon. We are very excited, and we tie the knot at the courthouse. Fast forward a week of being married, and my husband gets a Facebook message from Andy. It was basically asking him if he was willing to share me. He offered to take us to dinner to discuss the situation. My husband was all for going for a free meal, and then beating the crap out of this guy. but I didn't even want to look at him, let alone my now husband go to jail over me. So we ignore it. The big blow up, and how this story ends, for now, and hopefully forever, is that he found out where I work. He came in one day, and I had no choice but to help him. And he started to take pictures of me on his phone, in front of customers and my co-workers. I lost it on this guy, and I started screaming at him to leave me alone, and if he ever came near me or contacted me again, I would have him arrested. I honestly can't even remember all of what I said. I was shaking and almost started crying. Luckily, my boss was really cool about the whole thing, and I didn't even get in trouble for swearing in front of the customers. Anyway, his face was priceless. Totally shocked. He just slowly put his phone in his pocket and left. That was the last interaction I've had with him. It's been years, and I'll sometimes see him walking by my work, but he would just quickly look at me and then keep walking. As for why I never actually went to the cops, I was young and dumb and thought that I could handle it, which I did, but I am very lucky. If it had gotten any worse, I definitely would have gone to the police. I'm not sure why he acted like this towards me, or what I did to cause this to happen. Maybe he's just mentally unstable. Either way, I'm always on alert because of this guy. When I was 15, I enrolled into a program that allowed high schoolers to take classes at the local community college. The credits earned would apply as both high school and college credits. My first semester as part of this program, I took a basic English/creative writing type class, and I was by far the youngest student. My classmates found out pretty quickly that I was a minor, and we were curious why and how I was attending college classes while still in high school. I explained the situation to them, and they were all very nice and accommodating towards me, and I ended up exchanging IM screen names with quite a few of them. One of my classmates, to whom I gave my IM, was a 19-year-old guy called Nick. He was a bit of an odd duck, short and chubby with a sparse beard, and he frequently wore a black cape lined with red on the inside to class. He seemed to be into darker stuff, was a huge fan of vampires and Satanism, and listened to some intense music. I didn't really mind at the time. I was mostly just relieved I had made some friends despite my young age. He began to instant message me on a regular basis pretty quickly. The classroom we were in had computers for each of us, so Nick would often message me during class on those computers. At first, things seemed quite normal. We talked about our interests and hobbies, family, homework, and gossiped about all the other classmates. Pretty soon, though, Nick started bringing up some awkward topics. As a naive 15-year-old girl, that made me uncomfortable. Nick talked about how pretty he thought I was, and would often tell me I looked a few years older than I was. To be fair, I was quite tall for a 15-year-old, and said I acted mature for my age. He asked if I had a boyfriend, and when I told him that I did, he seemed upset and disappointed. He said if I broke up with my boyfriend and dated him, he would treat me like his vampire princess. He told me he wanted to kiss me and touch me everywhere, and that he hoped I would let him bite my neck. I politely yet firmly turned him down every time he brought it up, but he didn't seem to get the hint. Since I was too young for a driver's license, my mum had to pick me up at the college campus and drive me home. Due to her schedule, I usually had to wait for her to pick me up outside of the building my class was held in. Most of the time, I would have to wait about half an hour. Nick started following me out of class and would often wait with me until my mum pulled up. He would pressure me for more personal info and trash talk my current boyfriend. He commented that my boyfriend was probably cheating on me, so I should dump him preemptively. When my mum finally pulled up, I would breathe a sigh of relief and jump into the car. Online, Nick began to become more aggressive. Anytime he messaged me, he would start talking about my body in really inappropriate ways for a 15-year-old. I would repeatedly tell him I didn't like what he was saying, but no matter how hard I tried to steer the conversation away, he would always bring it back to the dirty talk. He told me he didn't mind that I was mostly flat-chested, stating he didn't need more than a handful. He told me I should wear tighter clothing to class, so that he could better imagine what I looked like naked. He mentioned that he frequently fantasized about doing stuff to me while in class, and specifically mentioned bending me over the computer desks. When I was home, I would refuse to respond to his messages if he took it too far. But when we were in class, I had no excuses as to why I wasn't messaging him back. He would sit next to me in class every day and would send me messages, then stare at me until I replied. If I didn't, he would get upset and his messages would become more hostile. He would say things like, "Why aren't you responding to me? You know I can see you ignoring me. I thought you were too young and pure to turn into one of those horrible girls, but I guess I'm wrong." The messages would pop up one after another until I replied. I would often cave and say, "Sorry, I was just paying attention to the teacher and didn't see your messages." Of course, he'd immediately change his tune, then start right back up with his twisted idea of a romantic conversation. I felt like there was no escaping his barrage of commentary, and I vowed to just stick it out and make it to the end of the semester. I could easily avoid him on campus in the spring. Everything came to a head towards the end of the fall semester. Nick sat next to me in every class, messaged me constantly, and called me weird pet names in front of other people, and would always try to be in physical contact with me. He would put his arm around my shoulders and always wanted to hug me. It made me excruciatingly uncomfortable, but I was too shy and nervous to ask him to stop. I would shrug his arms off my shoulders and try to stick to high fives. When he shrugged me, I would keep my hips as far away from him as possible. I even told one of the mentors at my youth group that there was someone at my college making me feel uncomfortable. At the time, I wasn't sure if I was overreacting, so I asked my youth leader if I could forward him parts of our online conversation that I thought were the most inappropriate. My youth leader's reaction quickly made me realize this was serious, and he explained to me that what Nick was doing was both extremely inappropriate and also potentially illegal. He asked me if I would keep him updated on the situation and to send him any more questionable messages. A couple of days later, Nick messaged me. For some reason on that particular day he was acting extremely forward. He made several of the usual comments about my looks and body, and then started to say how frustrating it was that I was so hot at such a young age. He told me I was too beautiful, and that it drove him crazy seeing me in person. He said something that sent chills down my spine. "You're so sexy and gorgeous. I'd probably still have at you if you were dead." He then went on to describe in great detail how he had this fantasy of sleeping with a girl who either was unconscious or freshly dead. And I mean great detail. I was absolutely horrified, and just sat there staring at the barrage of messages as they popped up. After a few minutes, I was able to snap myself out of my terror stupor and immediately blocked him. I forwarded the messages to my youth leader, who became extremely incensed. He urged me to tell my parents or the campus police so that they could help keep him away from me. He told me that this can be considered a threat, and he wanted me to be safe. He seemed so afraid for me that it actually scared me even more. I told him I would think about telling someone, then signed off I am. Unfortunately, I was young and stupid, and did none of the things that he suggested. I finished my semester and avoided Nick like the plague. No small task, let me tell you. I begged my mum to show up early, so that I could leave class and jump right into the car. The first time I did so, she looked behind me and said, "Oh hey, it's your little friend." I turned to see Nick standing outside the classroom building, wearing his black cape and staring blatantly at me. The look on his face was one of cold, furious hatred. I ducked down and shouted, "Please, just drive, Mum." My mother looked at me, concerned, then put the pedal to the floor. I eventually did give my mother a shortened explanation of what happened, leaving out some of the more grotesque details. She made a point to show up before my class ended every day, and waited right outside my building so that I could run out and hop into the passenger side of her car. Fortunately, after he followed me outside a few more times, he seemed to give up. He didn't try to talk to me in class, and didn't follow me outside anymore. I did catch him staring at me a few times in class, but in general, he seemed to take the hint and back off. After that class ended, I never saw or heard from him again, and for that, I am truly grateful. I am a 19-year-old male, 5'9" and 160 pounds, scrawny, middle-length red hair, and a large beard. I am by no means attractive. I work at my local Walmart on the fresh cap team, which basically means I stock all the fresh areas like produce, meat, deli and bakery, which is where I met a man that I wish I had never met in the first place. His name was John. John was a fairly large man, about 6'2", overweight, and probably weighed about 225 pounds. He was probably in his mid-50s or early 60s, and was very, very strange. At first, he seemed like a fairly nice man, liked to chat, would ask questions like how my day was, just casual conversation. I thought nothing of it, just a co-worker trying to be nice, or so it seemed. His questions began to get a bit more personal. Things about school, home life, and I shrugged it off as him just trying to be friendly. But then he asked me if I had a girlfriend. I told him that I was single, but didn't see myself in a relationship anytime soon. Let me re-emphasize that this man is easily 40 years older than me, so this question came off as more than a little creepy. He said, "Oh," and carried on working before I shrugged it off once again. No harm, right? Boy, was I wrong. John liked to sing. He wasn't very good at it though. He would constantly sing strange old songs, and sometimes he'd even sing old cartoon theme songs. He also made odd comments and other small things. At first I thought he was just a little quirky, but then it escalated. One time I watched him stare at a couple of little boys for a considerable amount of time, before he finally got back to what he was doing. I thought perhaps he was just envious of how young and lively they were, and wished to be that young again. Once again, I had no idea of how wrong I was. One day I came into work, like any other day. It was a nice day outside, so I didn't really want to be at work, but oh well. My supervisor told me that I needed to cap the bins, which basically means I needed to take inventory of what we have and pull anything that we needed to stock off the shelves onto a cart and onto the floor. A lot of this requires a ladder, as the shelves are quite high, and once again, I am not very tall. I'm on the top of the ladder, with my earbuds in, just doing my job, when I turn around and notice him staring at me. It almost seemed like he'd been staring at my ass. I pulled out an earbud and asked him if he needed something, but he just turned around and walked away. He said nothing at all. Why was he staring at me? I felt kind of violated, but I figured I must have been mistaken. So I got back to working again, and the rest of the day went by as normal. The next day, John came to work and walked right up to me. In one quick breath, he told me that he had written a song for me. My thoughts were clearly written on my face. I barely even knew the guy, and he wrote a song for me? He ignored my confused look and began to sing. I don't remember what exactly the lyrics were, but to sum it up, basically the song was about how I was his ray of sunshine. I was thoroughly creeped out. Thanks, I said, not able to hide my confusion and disgust. You didn't like it? He said, seeming surprised. Sorry, I barely even know you. That's kind of creepy, man. You're also way older. He said he thought I was gay, and I told him that I was bi, but I wasn't interested in him at all. That made him really angry, and he went off on a rant, yelling about how I came onto him, and that he was reciprocating my feelings for him. What? Everything I had said to him up until this point had been completely professional. The only thing I had done was answer some of his strange questions. He stormed out of the store, fuming. I went to my supervisor and told her everything that happened. She doesn't take harassment lightly, and helped me file an official complaint against him. When he came into work the next day, she took him off to the back, and I'm not sure what she said, but she fired him, and he walked out of the store and walked past me, giving me the most deadly glare I'd ever seen in my life. I was glad that he was finally gone from my life, but you guessed it, I was wrong. I was having a normal day at school, and my classes ended. I was walking out of the building talking with a friend, when John walked up out of nowhere and started yelling at me. Oh, crap. I forgot that I told him where I went to school. He said he knew I was in love with him, and to just come clean and admit it. You were just a co-worker to me, John. I don't have any feelings for you. Please leave me alone. This made him even angrier, and he came at me, threatening to kill me. My friends backed me up, and we managed to get him on the ground and under control, while we called the cops. When they showed up, I explained everything and they arrested him. As he was being dragged away, he threatened to kill me and my family. I pressed charges against him for harassment and assault, and when they investigated a little further, they found out that his home computer actually had indecent pictures of young boys, some even underage. All of them seemed very amateur, as if he had taken them himself. Being told this made me sick to my stomach, and made me feel even sicker still to think of what might have happened if my friends hadn't been there to help me when he assaulted me. I can't even begin to imagine. Turns out, he had already done some pretty horrific things to these boys. He was sentenced to life in prison for a slew of charges, not limited to harassment, assault, kidnapping, and so many accounts of possession of indecent images that I can't even remember. It made me feel good to know that he would be off the streets. After getting out of a serious relationship, I made a profile on a dating site where I was contacted by Mike. He sent a message admiring a shirt I was wearing in one of my photos that featured Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice, Wednesday Addams, and Nancy from The Craft. According to his profile, he and I shared interests in photography and campy horror, so I agreed to meet him at a Cindy Sherman exhibition at a local art museum. He was nervous from our initial meeting and kept bumping into me as if he lacked spatial awareness. I tried to be as chill as possible, hoping it would put him at ease, but everything I said just seemed to make him more nervous. His intense stares were starting to make me feel uncomfortable, and I tried to lose myself in the crowd so that I could at least enjoy the exhibition on my own, but he kept hunting me down, trying to make small talk. At some point I said, "Look, dude, I'm a huge dork. There's no reason for you to be so nervous." His eyes widened and said, "You're just so gorgeous." And he kept comparing me to Aubrey Plaza, Kate Micucci, among other ambiguously ethnic brunettes. I thought he looked like William Dafoe as a fake Mexican drug lord, but I didn't feel it necessary to tell him that. I excused myself to the restroom, but he followed, so I rushed off saying, "I gotta poop." He later commented that he thought it was so adorable that I had to poop. Nothing I could say to him could turn off this guy. If I were to pick my boogers and snack on them, he'd probably ask if he could eat some too. After the exhibit, we did the typical, "It was nice meeting you, but not really," awkward goodbye. I was wearing a high-necked dress with a partially open back, and he rubbed his hand on my bare skin very creepily before I pushed him away. Then he dug out a container of pink Hello Kitty cookies from his bag, proudly proclaiming that he had baked them for me, as if I were an 8-year-old. They tasted so nasty, even my housemate, who loves gross crap like candy corn, refused to eat them. Later that night, when I thought I was home safe. While I was in bed, I got a text from him, telling me that he had fun and wanted to hang out soon, because the guy was clearly delusional. I did not respond, so he texted, "You must be sleeping." The next day, he started sending me photos of random women, telling me I looked like them. The message would say, "I saw your twin today," or "I didn't know you did modeling," or "You have a new movie coming out? Do you want to see it with me?" I didn't respond, so he texted, "You must be busy." But that didn't stop him from sending me 20 more messages. In the final, most desperate one, he admitted that he'd told his sister we were dating, and begged me to go to dinner at her house because she wanted to meet me. He was trying to guilt-trip me into going with him because he lied to his family. I called his number and he answered on the first ring. I shouted down the line, "I am not your girlfriend and I am not even your friend. I'm blocking your number, so don't bother trying to contact me again," unintentionally spitting out rhymes under duress. He said he didn't want me to be mad at him and asked if I could give him another chance because he was really nervous the first time we met. I said I wasn't interested, so he asked for a reason. I told him honestly that his behavior creeped me out. We just met and you're already telling your family we're in a relationship? You don't think that's weird? He was silent on the other end, so I told him to seriously please not contact me again. I thought I was safe from his advances, until I ran into him a few months later when I was jogging through the neighborhood. He came up to me and waved. "Hey, remember me? We had fun at the museum." Scared to see him so close to where I lived, I questioned, "Are you stalking me?" He shook his head, then started waiting for me to say something, but I took off running. Every time I'd see someone who significantly resembled him, I would freak out. Several months later, I got a message on Facebook. We were not friends on there, saying that he missed me and wondered if we could be friends. He attached a poorly drawn cartoon that was supposed to be of me. It looked nothing like me or Aubrey Plaza or Kate Micucci for that matter, and suggested I make it my Facebook profile picture. I deactivated any online accounts associated with my real name, changed my phone number, and moved to the woods where the reception sucks. But at least he'll never be able to find me. I hope. I was, and still am, an extremely shy person. I'm the person with the headphones in, hoodie up, ignoring most people. That girl with the stutter and shy mumbling. I don't speak out and don't draw attention to myself, but that tends to attract the strangest people and the scariest guys. I had a huge crush on one of the really hot cool guys in school, sweet talker and a nerd. I hung out a lot, and he introduced me to his group of friends. That's where I met him. Tall perv. He was the strangest guy in the group. I mean, they were all pretty weird, but he stood out. He was very tall and had a flash drive around his neck 24/7, and he was very touchy-feely with his hands. Nickname, Tall Perv. I met him and he was already acting strange around me. The bell rang for us to go head back to class after lunch, but he had other ideas. He decided to pick me up by the breast and had me standing up. I didn't speak a lot, but I shrieked. He dropped me and said it's okay because I'm cute. He said, "Don't worry, I didn't mean anything, but it could if you wanted to." I ran back inside, terrified and confused. My crush pushed him away and was yelling at him. Neither one of them came after me. I still hung out with my crush again, but he was still hanging out with this guy and his short friend on another day. So I went up and tried to talk to my crush, overhearing Tall Perv talk about porn. He bragged about his flash drive full of it, the one he always wore. My crush looked annoyed as hell, but jumped at the chance of being with me. Many months later, I was heading to class that was in a different building, when suddenly I felt a hand up my arse. It was him again. laughing like it was a game. I had a textbook in hand and started hitting him as hard as I could, yelling and screaming at him. His face fell and he took off. I finally got rid of him, right? I did. Then he graduated. He never touched me again, but it doesn't end sadly. He found me on Facebook years later. At this time I'd forgotten his name and face. He didn't have a picture of him in his profile, so I added him like, "Oh, someone from high school. Cool." After I broke up with my then boyfriend, not my crush, but someone else, guess who popped up onto my phone? Tall perv. Same day. He began texting me every day, saying how he missed me and wanted to hang out. I got onto Facebook and saw that 90% of my posting of memes he had liked and commented. I posted a ton of memes daily, and he liked almost all of them. And my notifications were all from him, messages and likes. I looked at the profile and recognized him. He was begging to hang out, and one day out of the blue, he started sending pictures of his junk. I was shocked and kind of scared, so I decided to block him on Facebook. The end? No. I got a text message from my cell phone. Now very, very few people from high school had my cell phone. "Hey, it's me. You want to hang out? Come on, I miss you. We can come bake and cook at my house. I know you like sweets. We can make a cake. I know you live in this certain part of town, and it's not that far." He was correct. But how did he know where I lived? "Please, let's hang out. I can buy you lunch." I ignored his messages until he started calling me. He was crying and saying how lonely he was. He wanted me to go to his house and comfort him. He spammed his address at me, and I finally blocked his ass on my phone too. A year later, I got another message from him on a different number, and I blocked that one as well. He was a perv, and definitely still was. But he went on a whole nother level with stalking and begging. Remember, this went on for years. A close friend of mine recently warned everyone on Facebook about this guy because he picked up a scared female friend from his house. He had apparently lured a girl to his house and attempted to assault her. She fled before he could grab her. She had not filed any charges as far as I was aware of. All that I do know is that I don't want to see that guy again. If I do, it better be a mugshot. Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much Is that someone at your window? No, really, turn around. It's just a shadow. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's installment of Stalker Stories. If you've already heard this bit or know about the drama with Discord, feel free to pause the video. It's been great having you. Now, if you've stuck around, that means you're unaware of what happened. Let me summarize it. A few months ago, I was invited to be the face of a Discord server, so I gladly accepted. That meant that I would have a new audience of people to potentially get them to like me and maybe follow my content too. I think it was about 7,000 odd. So it was a fairly big number. I accepted the gig because the person before had apparently been kicked out for inactivity in the server. So I accepted and met all these new people. Well, you know, not really me, but I was introduced to them. Now, I couldn't be that active. I had a small baby, I have a wife, I have a job. I have loads of things I have to do. So I couldn't really talk that much, and it wasn't really that motivating just being dropped into something and having little to no idea what it was about. Anyway, so I had this Discord server, and, you know, I didn't really do much on it. People were dropping out constantly, and it just wasn't very fun, really. And what ended up happening is that one day I went onto the server because I got a notification, and then they changed everything. They stripped me of all my permissions and then basically said, "We've replaced you with someone else." When asked why, they just said it's because the server was dying and they needed a new face to keep it alive. Which, fair enough. I understand. I probably wasn't doing my part. Even though I did let them know that it would be very hard for me to be super active, which they were cool with at the start. Point being, they just did everything behind my back, which was pretty crappy. But I let it go, and I've now made my own. So hopefully it's a lot better, but please bear in mind, if you've listened this far, that I am quite new to Discord, that I'm not an expert, and, well, if anyone has any tips or help, I'd always really appreciate it. Anyway, so that's what happened there. That's why I created my own. I've integrated it with a bunch of Patreon rewards as well. So if you're a patron, you have some funky rewards to check out there too. So, be sure to do so. And link your Patreon to the Discord if you haven't done so already. But anyway, that was a long enough rant and explanation. I hope that you all have a wonderful evening. Make sure that no one's inside your house or looking through your windows. And I'll see you in the next one.